getting a signal here. There we go. And so grateful to have you here with us, Lydia Huston. And I'm appreciating so much you reading this book and all of your everything you have to say. So turning the mic over to you, Lydia Huston. This mic is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. Okay, we have been reading from John Mundy's Living A Course in Miracles, an essential guide to the classic text. I love this book. John Mundy has a terrific sense of humor, and his delivery is just amazingly dry, and he's just really witty. So last time I read, we had just finished the chapter, The Dreaming of the World. Today, we are continuing with The Dreaming of the World, but we're starting the section, Watching Our Dreams. And this is a very nice section. I remember reading this. I read this book twice before, and I've listened to it. John Mundy is a great narrator as well. This begins with this quote from the Course. Your dreams contain many of the ego's symbols, and they have confused you. Watching our dreams. Freud called our nightmare dreams the royal road to the unconscious. Our dreams represent our projections, fantasies, and fears. Paying attention to my dreaming, I begin to be aware of what is going on in a deeper dimension of consciousness. A study of dreams enables my understanding of the unconscious mind. There is usually some problem which is trying to be worked out within the dream. Likewise, in even the simplest of children's fairy tales, there is some problem which must be solved. We find ourselves within the dream on a journey, an expedition of sorts. We're trying to get home, and the car won't start. We miss the bus. We're walking down the wrong street. We don't have any shoes on, and it is starting to snow. When we awake, we have a new set of problems. I must get up and get to work. I must deal with my kids, my health, and my angry boss. To escape it all, I come home at night and veg out in front of the television with a beer in hand, and thus continue the dreaming of the world. We are such stuff as dreams are made of, and our little life is rounded with a sleep. William Shakespeare in The Tempest. Awakening in the morning, the dream is gone. The dreamer, however, is not gone, and so the dream continues on. By night, I have wings and can fly. Wakening, I can only fly inside machines. All the fantasies of the world are forms of daydreaming, misrepresentations and distortions in which we attempt to appropriate reality, to twist it into something it is not. There is no world. This is the central thought the Course attempts to teach. Imagine what it would be like if you were not here, literally. If I have died and left this body, if my body has been cremated and there is absolutely nothing left of the body, would this whole life not seem like a dream, which happened once upon a time in a land far, far away? Does your childhood not seem like a dream? Would this not even Would this not be even more so if we literally were not here in this world, in this place and time? All things and all sentiments are interpretations only, and interpretations cannot be real in any sense. English Taoist, Wei Wu Wei. Domestication and the collusion of illusion. The Australian Aborigines, perhaps the materially poorest people on Earth, and the only group of people on Earth who have no suicides in their culture, have always thought of this world as a dream. The native tribes in Venezuela also speak of waking life as a dream. The dreaming of the world includes all of society's rules, mores, morals, customs, beliefs, values, religions, myths, philosophies, psychological problems, and more. Our myths and religions run our lives. According to Scottish satirist Thomas Carlyle, popular opinion is the greatest lie in the world. Our families, social institutions, and the omnipresent media create, describe, and maintain society's dream. And the collusion of illusion we all share. We are domesticated and addicted to dreaming as a dog is domesticated through a system of rewards and punishment. In solitude, we have our dreams to ourselves, and in company, we agree to dream in concert. English author, Dr. Samuel Johnson. If a woman walks bare-breasted down almost any street in the United States, she can be arrested for indecent exposure. In certain South Pacific and African cultures, women walk around bare-breasted and no one notices because it's not regarded as unusual. In some cultures, a woman must have not only her breasts covered, but also her ankles, hands, face, everything. Each social code represents a diverse interpretation of reality. It is not that one is right and another is wrong. They are just different interpretations. Every child is born a mystic. Then we draw him toward the school and the education and the serpent. The serpent is the civilization, the culture, the conditioning. Indian spiritual teacher, Osho. From infancy onward, we are told what the world is. This teaching is incessant until we perceive the world correctly. That is, according to the prescribed formula of the culture in which we live. Eventually, we do not have to be domesticated. We want to please others and act appropriately, so we punish ourselves if we get out of line. Conform to the proper description of the world. Make appropriate interpretations, and we are rewarded with money and prestige, fame and fortune, degrees and titles. The reality of day-to-day life consists of an unending stream of rarely questioned interpretations we share with the world. Trapped in the dream. There is a scene in the movie Saturday Night Fever where John Travolta's brother comes home to tell his parents he has given up the priesthood. In explaining himself to Travolta's character, he says of their parents, "All I ever believed in was their image of me as a priest." We cannot awaken from a dream we think the world is dreaming for us. We only awaken when we become aware of the dreamer within the dream. Looking at a wall full of magazines in a bookstore, you can see Gun World, Motorhome World, Antique World, Fishing World, Wrestling World, and Craft World, to name a few. Pick a world. The world is just a view. It's just an attitude. There are lots of worlds in which we may invest. One evening, I asked my then teenage daughter, Sarah, what she was watching on TV. She said it was a show called The Real World. And what I said is, the real world, she said it was about teenagers who get drunk and have sex. We live in the information age, an age coming into form. It is an age of cell phones, texting, social networking, emails, computers, and televisions, all telling us what the world is. The more information I have, the more reinforcement I have about the constituents of reality. An electronic screen on the wall in our home tells us what is valuable and real, what's elegant, splendid, and sublime, what's offensive and repugnant, what's hip, what's hot, what's cool, what's not. Daytime television is dominated by soap operas, or at least it used to be. In a soap opera, sin, guilt, fear, and hatred abound. One rule prevails: nobody gets to be happy. Here is the best of what the world has to offer: the finest homes, cars, furs, and jewels. Here too, isolation, sorrow, suffering, and spiritual malnutrition proliferate. Watch a soap for only 1 minute. The characters are manipulative. Everyone is out for themselves. They lie and cheat. No one is genuinely altruistic. No one is happy. So it is in the ego's world. And so it is that we create our own soap operas and act them out with our families and friends, neighbors, and co-workers. Just for fun, silly ways to make up the world. As a part of our dreaming of the world, we sometimes do things and then forget why we started doing them. There are many funny illustrations of how this is done. Here is just one. I had a Cocker Spaniel named Joyful, and at the time, a home with a spacious dog run out back, perfect for puppies. I had my Joyful dog bred, and when the puppies were born, they all came out with tails. The father and mother did not have tails, but the puppies all had tails. I didn't have the heart to cut them off. Consequently, my Cocker Spaniels grew up with tails. When they were about 3 or 4 months old and it was time to sell them and earn me some money, I was told by the breeder who was going to sell them for me that they have no value. They have tails. The best I could do was to give them away. I decided this was silly, so I did some research to find out why it is necessary to cut off the tails of Cocker Spaniel puppies. A couple of 100 years ago, most of the world was rural. Cocker spaniels were then being raised in dirty barnyards. So mud from the barnyard, cockleburs from the field, their own dung, everything got hung up in their long, hairy tails. The farmers, not wishing to have a ball of mud dragging into the house behind their dogs, started chopping off the tails of puppies to prevent this problem. Cocker spaniels now live in suburban homes and apartments. They never get close to muddy barnyards. And yet, if you don't cut off that tail, after telling the Cocker Spaniel pup story in a public lecture, I once said, "Why are men circumcised?" And a woman in the group said, "Because they drag it in the mud." Whoa, okay. On another occasion, someone said, "Because if you don't, they don't have any value." The best you could do is to try to give them away. And on still a third occasion, someone said, "Because women are always looking for 20% off." Okay, male baby boys are taken within hours of birth into a nursery. They are strapped down with Velcro strips, and a portion of the most sensitive part of the human male anatomy is then cut off. 80% of all adult American males are circumcised. The operation is often done procedurally without serious consultation with parents. Baby boys scream their heads off during this whole procedure. Here is proof of the fact that one is a body and a victim. After services one Sunday, a woman asked if I would please pray for her little baby boy who was going into the hospital to have an operation. "My goodness," I said, "what's wrong?" "Well," she said, "you know the circumcision, they messed it up. We have to have reconstructive surgery done." "Why?" I asked. "Did you have him circumcised?" She said, "Well, my husband said, what happens when he is 11 years old changing clothes in a gym someplace and the other boys notice that he looks different? Let's fix it so he will not look different." It wasn't being done for religious or hygienic reasons. It was being done in conformity to tradition. I read the sermon of a 19th century clergyman who described heaven as a place where there were fine horses and carriages. His heaven was an idealized representation of the world, perceived through 19th century eyes. Every generation laughs at the old fashions, but follow religiously the new. American transcendentalist Henry David Thoreau. Saying there is no world does not mean I deny the seeming reality of the world. To say there is no world doesn't mean I'm not to be appreciative of beautiful mountains, rivers, and forests, flowers, animals, and good food. To say there is no world does not mean that I can do whatever I want without consequence. While in Rome, I do what normal Romans do: pay my taxes and observe the speed limit. I see the system for what it is without making it a problem. A teacher of God is a lover of what presents itself: nature, music, or another soul. If I hate the world or my body, I make them real. After a lifetime of trying, tyrants must come with sadness to the realization that there is no world to possess, and the dream of dominance was but a fleeting fantasy. But healing is the gift of those who are prepared to learn there is no world and can accept the lesson now. Some see it suddenly on point of death and rise to teach it. Others find it in experience that is not of this world, which shows them that the world does not exist, because what they behold must be the truth, and yet it clearly contradicts the world. A Course in Miracles. Become lucid dreamers. Knowing that I'm the dreamer of the dream, I can decide how I want to view the dream, and I can continue to live in the world without taking things too seriously. Spirit is eternal. The activity of the ego is limited and destined to end in time. We make up the world, and the world we make up is as a fantasy. Sometimes a nightmare, sometimes very ordinary, sometimes quite beautiful. You see the world that you have made, but you do not see yourself as the image maker. You cannot be saved from the world, but you can escape from its cause. This is what salvation means. For where is the world you see when its cause is gone? A Course in Miracles. Awareness of dreaming is the real work of God's teachers. Once I know I'm dreaming, I can change my perception of the dream. I can see peace instead of this. Whatever this is, I can turn it over to the Holy Spirit. Happy dreams are still dreams. Now, however, we see that we're in a classroom, not a prison. Now I dream of others' kindness and not their hurts. I dream of heaven, no longer hell. Okay, that concludes chapter 8. Chapter 9 is one of my favorite chapters. I am not a body. Death and the ego body identity. The body is the central figure in the dreaming of the world. There is no dream without it, nor does it exist without the dream in which it acts as if it were a person to be seen and be believed. The one phase which is repeated more often than any other in the Course is, I am not a body, I am free. Ever feel as though you would like to transcend the body, to get beyond the skin, to be free of its aches and pains, the appetites and incessant needs of the body? Did you ever wish that you did not have to wake this thing up in the morning? Yes. Who is the I that awakens the body in the morning? Primitive man, looking at his face in a lake, must have wondered about this thing looking back at him. Plato called the body a tomb. Wow. Seneca said it was an inn, and the St. Francis of Assisi lovingly called it brother ass. The ego's fundamental wish is to replace God. In fact, the ego is the physical embodiment of that wish, for it is that wish that seems to surround the mind with a body, keeping it separate and alone, and unable to reach other minds except through the body that was made to imprison it. A Course in Miracles. The ego-body identity. I know of no document as clear as the Course in its teaching about the body and its clarification that we are not bodies. The body is a tiny fence around a grand and glorious idea. It is a thought of separation, projected by the mind into form. Bodies are the very essence of the experience of separation and proof of physicality. The body is a very little segment of heaven, splintered off from the whole. They are obviously destructible and temporarily delimited in space and time. We are not our bodies, and yet we are almost 100% identified with the body. According to the Course, the only thing we have not done completely is that we have not utterly forgotten the body. There may be moments when it fades from our sight, but it never completely disappears. There is plenty of evidence that we are bodies. Look around. What do we see but other bodies? Vast sums of money are spent on cosmetics, clothes, and adornments for the body. The first thing each morning, we look in the mirror and affirm, for good or ill, the seeming reality of the body. How much time is given to appetites, compulsions, and hungers of the body we seem unable to control? The body is a kind of escape vehicle for running away from God, giving us, it seems, temporary autonomy from God. Seeing myself as a body makes the world real. Being preoccupied with the body and the dreaming of the world, it is easy to forget God. Anything a body does must first be a thought, whether that thought comes from the mindfulness, sanity, or mindlessness, insanity. Good or bad, pain and pleasure appear as the mind judges the functions of the body. Pain and pleasure make the body real. They are proof of the body's veracity and therefore the ego's existence. Pleasures, both physical and psychological, can make the world desirable and real. In pain, I hate the world and the body. Out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. William Shakespeare, Macbeth. I asked a friend how he was doing, and he said, well, at least I'm not 6 feet under. Whatever is 6 feet under has nothing to do with who we are. The ego has a need/hate relationship with the body, being seemingly inextricably connected with the body. While we may well intuit the illusory nature of the body, we simultaneously experience overwhelming evidence that we are bodies, doomed to suffer, grow old, and die. And then, amen. The body is the ego's idol. the belief in sin made flesh and then projected outward. This produces what seems to be a wall of flesh around the mind, keeping it prisoner in a tiny spot of space and time. Pleasure involves an activity of the body, as does pain. How easily am I distracted by the murmurs, rumbles, and cravings of the stomach, the aches and pains of the body? How much time and money is spent in dealing with issues related to feeding, bathing, pampering the body? Mouths are strange things. So are teeth and the whole digestive and elimination system. Eating is an aggressive act. Animal bodies must die so that my body may live. Sex, too, is a strange activity if you think about it, but let's not go there. One could easily do a comedy routine around the inelegant and awkward-looking nature of eating or sexuality. No doubt it has been done before. Appetites are getting mechanisms, representing the ego's need to confirm itself. This is as true of body appetites as it is of the so-called higher ego needs. Body appetites are not physical in origin. Separation and the body. We have admittedly ambivalent relationships with our bodies. Sometimes loving them, sometimes hating them. We are critical of our own and others' bodies. If we are sick, overweight, or believe we are ugly, we may hate the body and feel that it is not good enough to be our home. Or we may be proud of our bodies and hope or pretend that they will last forever. As they seem to have a mind of their own and thinking they were evil, some of the early mystics sought to punish the body through mortification of the flesh. I never got my mind around that. Sitting outdoors in inclement weather, flagellating themselves with whips, and fasting to the point of death. All of this made the body more real than ever. Another group, the libertines, saying that the body was not real and therefore inconsequential, thought they could do anything they wanted and thus engaged in a variety of excesses leading to bodily addictions and bodily ills. The ego, seeking to keep the body from being found illusory, tries to project eternity into the body. The pharaohs of ancient Egypt were obsessed with trying to solidify monolithic images of themselves in stone, often scratching out the images of the pharaohs who had gone before them. We raise children, write books, paint pictures, erect buildings, take pictures, have streets named after us, and mausoleums constructed for the body, all in the grave hope of some earthly immortality. No one believes there really was a time when he knew nothing of a body and could never have conceived this world as real. A Course in Miracles. You may know that Presidents Thomas Jefferson and John Adams died the same day, July 4, 1826, exactly 50 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence. They had been friends, but a rift developed between them. Toward the end of their lives, they renewed their friendship. In the last letter Jefferson sent to John Adams, he inquired about his health. John Adams wrote back saying that while he was fine, the house in which he lived had become quite dilapidated. The shingles had almost all fallen off. His hair was almost all gone. The windows were fogged over. He could no longer see. He was fine, but his body, like a decrepit old house, was just about to tumble over. In the PBS series, The Power of Myth, American journalist Bill Moyers asked the then 80-year-old mythologist, Dr. Joseph Campbell, what is it like being an octogenarian? He said it was like driving an old car. It did not start as well in the mornings as it used to. It chugged up hills. It was covered with scars and wrinkles, and the tailpipe was starting to drag. He said he thought he was about ready to turn it in for a new model. Cars are the most recycled of all objects. Like our bodies, our cars are vehicles in which we move around. They give us status or the lack thereof. As we animate or run our cars, so do we animate the body. The car has no life in it. It is just a thing, as are our bodies. Eventually, just like the metal in my car, the carbon atoms which make up this body will decompose and reposition themselves in other forms of organic matter. A major source of the ego's off-balance state is its lack of discrimination between the body and the thought of God. If the mind can heal the body, but the body cannot heal the mind, then the mind must be stronger than the body. The body cannot make the mind do anything, but the mind can and does make the body do all sorts of things. And the displacement of guilt onto the body makes the body sick. The body is itself neutral and an instrument of the mind. On its own, it cannot be guilty. So the question is this: what does the mind do with the body? Watching the body. Watch the body dispassionately. Notice the ego body distractions as it speaks to us of its appetites and needs. I'm hungry. I need to pee. I need to sleep. A friend says, I can't get going until I have my cup of coffee in the morning. Sounds like my husband. Who is the I that can't get going without the coffee? Who runs this machine? Who thrusts the handmaid inside a bag of potato chips? It is the ego running the show, or is there a higher perspective? First drink, man drinks wine. Second drink, wine drinks wine. Third drink, wine drinks man. That's interesting. Watch the body and see what seems to be upsetting about it. Do I need the drink? Maybe I don't need it. If the body is preoccupied with pain, it captures my attention and holds it outside of the mind. From a place of vision or right-mindedness, we are, or we see, even though the body may be in pain, there is a part of our mind that can step back, transcend the body, watch what is happening, and choose peace. This is a favorite practice of mine. I'm just taking a brief break to give a little editorial about what we just read. Sometimes I can, during meditation, forget there is a body. I do a form of meditation described by Gary Renard in one of his books. I cannot remember which, but it may have also been a recorded workshop where you become very quiet, and starting at your feet, you picture parts of your body just disappearing until there's nothing, not even eyes. And it's a slow process, but at the end of it, you do feel amazingly free. What is difficult to do is, it is difficult to do this when you are in pain. And I have done it when I've had a headache and the headache went away. I've done it a few other times with different aches and pains, but most often I just do it because it's amazingly freeing. And it really is a great way to reconnect with your higher source. And I can't remember which Gary Renard program this was, but it is an amazing meditation. And it really does help. And throughout the day, when you think of it, this is perhaps one of the workbook lessons, but if you can, and you don't want to do the workbook again, I think one of the most powerful mantras from the Course is, I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. It says it all. I am not a body. And it helps you to step back, not identify with the soap opera and the actor who's playing Lydia. So you don't have to identify with the role you're playing. You can watch what's going on in the dream with dispassionate interest. You observe it. Sometimes you can even think of yourself in the third person, which I frequently do. You don't have to take what you're doing so seriously. It's not a matter of life and death, because there is no death. There's only God. And this role you're playing in this life has nothing to do with him. Nothing whatsoever. It's a dream that you're dreaming, that we are collectively dreaming. I'm seeing it from my tiny perspective, and you're seeing it from your perspective, and we're all seeing the same things as far as world events and politics and world catastrophes that have to do with the earth. We're all seeing it. We're all seeing the same dream, but we're viewing it from a different perspective. And knowing that will help you not take the dream seriously. The dream will definitely convince you from time to time that it is very real. War is very real in our minds. Politics are very real in our minds. Cancer is very real in our minds. But when you think about it, it's not real. Nothing that is not God can be real. And nothing here is God or has anything to do with him. Oh, it is 3:52. And I am going to have to dash off and see my mom. By the way, I want to give everyone a little update. Mom did have back surgery on November 7th, and we just had the post-op visit, and she is doing wonderfully. My mom is incredible. I can't believe that she is healing this well at her age. She will be 81 on Christmas Day. Oh, God, I can't believe it. But she still is the same mom I grew up with. In fact, we were just reminiscing recently about how happy we were just living together. I I lived with my mom until I was married. I was in my 30s, okay? But we were such good roommates, good friends, always making each other laugh. Um, we had such a great relationship that there was no urge or need for me to move out. I did not think that I would have a happier life living alone than living with my mom. So anyway, I am off to see her. I love this book. Um, John Mundy is such a great teacher, and I love the way he explains every little thing about the course. And this is one of my favorite chapters, I Am Not a Body. Um, I know it is, we have a lot of challenges in the world now, in the dream that we are all collectively dreaming. But once a day, I want you to just entertain the idea that none of it is real. And we have a home in God. All of us, the victims and the perpetrators, we are one, and we will go back to God as one. Thank you for listening, and I will be with you all again next week.
All right. Thank you so much, Lydia Houston. And such good news about your mom. And yes, it's fun listening to you read John. I'm laughing. I'm just sitting over here chuckling away. But it's just so beautiful that we can play, we can enjoy our lives. And, this is not a time to be sad. In fact, it's a time to be really joyful because
Mhm.
we do have this course and we're not excuse me, we're not coming back. This is it. And I see that with everyone who's joining us that we're really having a great awakening right now. So
Mhm.
Lydia Houston, my love, we will see you next week. Give your
Mhm.
mom our love. And we all know that healing is a state of mind and we're
Mhm.
in that state. I love you, sweetheart. Bye-bye.